Part 1, Chapter 1, My Journey to Learn English. Hello, my name is Emma. I am a student studying English literature. Today, I want to share my story with you. This is a story about my journey in New York and about a wonderful teacher who changed my life. You can follow my story and learn English with me. It was a sunny day in spring. I was traveling on a train. Two people were sitting across from me. They were speaking in English, and I could only understand a little. At that time, I was a beginner. My vocabulary was very small, but I decided to try speaking with them. I used some basic English words to start a conversation. To my surprise, they understood me. That small success made me so happy. I told them I wanted to learn English. They told me they were from California and were returning home from a business meeting. We talked for about 10 minutes. When it was time for me to leave, they gave me their contact information and invited me to visit them in California. That short conversation inspired me to improve my English even more. From that day on, I practiced English every day. I translated simple text, watched English movies, and listened to English songs. After 6 months, my English was much better, but I wanted to learn more. So, I decided to go to New York and join a language school. My first lesson was on a Monday. I met my teacher and my classmates. The teacher was a kind and energetic person, always encouraging us. She introduced us to a new way of learning English. Instead of studying heavy textbooks, she asked us to use English in our daily lives. She said this method would help us communicate better. Chapter 2, How I Learned Vocabulary. On Tuesday, I went back to school, and one of my classmates asked a question that really caught my attention. She wanted to know the best way to learn new words. Our teacher explained that there are many methods to improve vocabulary, but the most effective one, based on research, is reading. When we read, we naturally pick up new words much faster, twice as fast as those who don't read regularly. To get the most out of this method, it's recommended to read for at least 30 minutes each day. Here's how to make the most of your reading time. 1. Choose interesting material. It's crucial that the book or article you read is something you enjoy. Whether it's a gripping story, a fun fiction book, or an intriguing nonfiction piece, your interest will keep you engaged. 2. Stay within your level. If the text is too difficult, it can be frustrating. Always select something that matches your current understanding of the language. 3. Use a dictionary. When you encounter a word you don't know, look it up in a dictionary. Understanding the meaning will help you grasp the text better, and you'll naturally remember the word for future use. 4. Learn word connections. Reading not only introduces you to new words, but also shows how words are linked together in sentences. This helps you learn how to use new vocabulary correctly. Our teacher assured us that this method is incredibly effective, and I decided to give it a try. Later, we discussed life in England and the best jobs for students. This was particularly useful for me because I wanted to find a part-time job after school. After school, I visited the local job center. Unsure of what job to apply for, I asked a staff member for advice. She suggested jobs like cleaning or working as a waitress in a cafe. Although I had no experience, she assured me that my English was good enough for these roles. I felt confident and ready to start my job search. The training for the job wasn't difficult, and I realized it gave me more opportunities to speak English compared to being a cleaner. The staff member told me I could start on Thursday, which was perfect. I was thrilled to have a job where I could practice my English. To effectively learn new words, it's essential to read for at least 30 minutes each day. On Wednesday, I returned to school. There's a quiet student in our class from South Korea. When our teacher asked if anyone had questions, he raised his hand. He shared that he struggles with pronunciation. Even though he understands English well from reading and watching films, he finds speaking difficult because he's self-conscious about his pronunciation. Our teacher listened attentively and then explained why pronunciation can be challenging. She said that when we speak, we need to use the muscles in our mouth. The problem arises when we use these muscles the same way we do in our native language, which can lead to different pronunciation from native English speakers. She reassured us that having a slightly different pronunciation isn't a big problem as long as people understand us. However, she introduced us to a technique called shadowing, which can significantly improve our pronunciation. This method involves listening to audio or video recordings and mimicking the sounds immediately after hearing them. It's the same way children learn their first language, by copying what they hear over and over. Our teacher showed us some shadowing videos on YouTube, demonstrating how to practice effectively. We tried it out in class for about 3 minutes. She also mentioned that shadowing is excellent for preparing for presentations. Practicing it for about 10 minutes before a presentation can greatly enhance pronunciation. I found this technique fascinating since I hadn't heard of it before. After the lesson, I went to the school reception to ask about sports activities. The receptionist informed me that there was a table tennis team and a football team. The football team had practice that evening at 5 o'clock. Excited, I decided to join the training. At practice, I met players from various countries like Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. It was a fantastic opportunity to connect with people from different cultures while enjoying a sport I love. I enjoyed the football training and felt happy that my time in England was off to a great start. I had a wonderful teacher, made new friends from the football team, and was excited to start my job the next day. If you want to improve your pronunciation, remember to repeat after native speakers. On Thursday, I went back to school. We had a new student in our class named Clara, who was from Italy. At the beginning of the lesson, our teacher asked her some questions. The teacher already knew Clara because she had attended a beginner's class during a summer holiday a year ago. That class lasted for just 2 weeks. Clara spoke beautifully, with excellent pronunciation and fluency. Our teacher was impressed and said, "Your school in Italy must be very good." Clara smiled and replied, "I don't go to any school. I learn English at home. I use the techniques I learned from you, reading, shadowing, and thinking aloud. I try to think more in English than in Italian. That's how I work on my English. The 2 weeks I spent in your class last summer helped me a lot. You showed me the way, and now I know how to practice English every day. That's why I wanted to join your class again. A year ago, I was a beginner, and now I can speak English. I want to learn more from you. Our teacher was delighted to hear this and praised Clara for her hard work. I found it all fascinating. I was already familiar with reading and the shadowing technique, but Clara mentioned thinking aloud, which I didn't know about. So I asked our teacher, "What is thinking aloud?" She explained, "It's a very effective technique, but you need strong motivation to benefit from it. Some people might find it a bit unusual, but if you start thinking aloud, your English can improve quickly." I said, "I have strong motivation, and I don't care if the technique seems crazy. If it helps, I want to learn it. Can you teach us?" The teacher smiled and said, "It's actually quite simple. Normally, you think in your native language all day. Now, start thinking in English. When you begin to think in English, you can say your thoughts aloud. That's all there is to it." I asked, "Why is it so effective?" She suggested, "Maybe Clara can share her experience with this technique." Clara agreed and said, "When I started, it wasn't easy. I began with very simple sentences like, 'I can speak English.' It's good that I can speak English. I want to be better. I need to practice every day." At first, my thinking in Italian was long and complicated, so I had to simplify my thoughts for English. This was the hardest part, but over time, it became normal for me to think in English. She continued, "One day, I met a man from Australia who was on holiday in Italy. Even though I was still a beginner, we started speaking in English. I realized I could have a conversation without translating from Italian to English in my head. My sentences were simple and short, but I could communicate. After that, I used thinking aloud more frequently, and it helped me a lot with speaking. I still use it every day, and it's very effective." Our teacher thanked Clara for sharing her experience. Inspired by her story, I decided to try thinking aloud to improve my speaking skills. To speak English fluently, remember to read, listen, think, and speak, each for 30 minutes every day. Part 2. Hello, I hope you're feeling well. My name is Williams, and I am an English student. This is my story about living in Paris and my amazing teacher. You can read my story and learn English with me. Chapter 1. How I Learn Grammar. After school, I head to the cafe where my job training begins. I don't know what to expect since I have no experience, and I'm unsure if I can handle the job. When I arrive at the cafe, I'm pleasantly surprised. It's a modern place that serves coffee, tea, chocolate cakes, and sandwiches. My boss is only 25 years old. She started working at the cafe over 2 years ago and has gained a lot of experience since then. She teaches me how to make coffee, wash the dishes, and serve customers. Everything is new to me, and I only remember about 20% of what she explains. However, she allows me to start working and corrects me whenever I make a mistake. She's very friendly, which helps me learn quickly. By the end of my first day, I'm exhausted but happy to have a job. The next day is Friday, and I return to school. One of the students asks an interesting question. Sometimes when I speak, I'm unsure if I'm using the correct grammar. What can I do to improve? Our teacher responds, "Thank you for your question. There are two types of students. Those who want to speak English fluently and those who need to pass an exam. The approach is different for each group. For students who want to speak English fluently, you don't need to focus heavily on grammar. Think about how you learned your native language. You didn't study grammar. You simply learned it by using the language. You can do the same with English. The best way to learn grammar naturally is through reading. Books are written with proper grammar, and by reading, you'll learn grammar within the context of full sentences. I also recommend the shadowing technique. When you practice shadowing, you're naturally using correct grammar without having to memorize rules. You just copy sentences with proper grammar. If you still want to study grammar but focus on speaking, you can visit grammarinews.com. This website highlights the most important grammar rules for different levels of English proficiency, especially for speaking. For students aiming to pass an exam, it's important to prepare specifically for that exam. You can find past versions of the exam and practice with them. Focus on the specific grammar and structure required for the test. Of course, your exam will be slightly different, but the structure is usually consistent or very similar. In my opinion, past exam versions are excellent training materials. I suggest you take the exam only when your practice results indicate that you can pass it successfully. Did I answer your question? Our teacher asks. Yes, thank you, replies the student. This is good news. I don't like studying grammar. I'm learning English because I want to speak, not to pass an exam. I'm happy I don't have to focus too much on grammar. I enjoy reading, and it's great to know that I can learn grammar through reading books. After the lesson, I visit grammarinews.com. It's a fantastic website with grammar rules and examples tailored to different levels. They have 3 levels based on word counts. 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 words. In the afternoon, I go to work for my second day. I can already handle many tasks on my own, though my boss is there to help when needed. I realize my job isn't very difficult, and I appreciate the opportunity to practice English with our customers. Moral: when you want to improve your grammar, read a lot. Chapter 2. How I tested my English. Monday arrives and I'm back at school. Our teacher asks us about our weekend activities. I share that I worked on Saturday and feel confident in my job now. I mention how happy I am to speak with customers. As I speak, a girl in the class asks, "What happened to your voice? You sound very different from last week. Your pronunciation has improved." I smile and say, "Thank you. I practiced shadowing on Saturday evening after work and all day Sunday. I tried to mimic native speakers. It's not perfect, but I notice a significant improvement." Our teacher asked if anyone else tried shadowing. 3 students respond affirmatively, including the student from South Korea, who enjoys the technique. One student shares her experience. I tried shadowing, but my mouth hurt after 5 minutes, so I stopped. The recordings were also too fast for me to keep up. Our teacher responds, "Thank you for trying. If your mouth hurts after 5 minutes, it means you're doing it correctly. You need to train your muscles for this new way of speaking, similar to exercising at the gym. Initially, your muscles might ache if they aren't accustomed to the workout. If your mouth muscles hurt, take a short break after 5 minutes and continue later. Each practice session, even just 5 minutes, will improve your pronunciation. Shadowing offers additional benefits. You practice not only pronunciation, but also intonation, rhythm, and how words connect within sentences. I know that at the beginning, recordings might feel too fast. Our teacher continues. If that happens, just repeat the first or last word of the sentence. With practice, you'll be able to repeat more. I chime in, "That's true." On Saturday, shadowing was tough, but by Sunday evening, it was much easier to repeat what I heard. I then have a question for our teacher. I visited grammarinlevels.com. The site is interesting, but I'm unsure which level suits me because I don't know how many words I know. Our teacher turns to the class. Does anyone know how many words they know in English? Surprisingly, no one does. We're all aware that we're intermediate students, but the exact number of words we know is a mystery. There's a website for language learners where you can test this. Our teacher explains. It's called testlanguages.com. The test is simple and consists of only 2 steps. You can take it monthly to track your progress. Intrigued, I immediately try the test and discover I know 2,100 words. Most of my classmates fall between 2,000 and 2,200 words, except Monica and the boy from South Korea, who know 2,510 words. So, our teacher concludes, those of you with over 2,000 words can start using level 3 grammar on grammarinlevels.com. Moral: test your progress monthly. Chapter 3. How I Handle Mistakes. On Tuesday, back at school, a student asks, "I want to practice speaking with people, but I'm afraid of making mistakes and looking foolish. What can I do?" Our teacher smiles. Mistakes are a fascinating topic with many opinions. Let me share what I believe works best, based on my experiences learning languages like Spanish. When I speak Spanish, I don't worry about mistakes because my goal is to communicate my ideas. That's the key. When we learn our native language, we don't focus on avoiding mistakes. Children, for instance, make plenty of errors but improve as they continue to speak. The same applies to learning English. Mistakes are essential for progress. The teacher adds, think of learning a language like learning to play an instrument. At first, you'll make mistakes, but with practice, these mistakes diminish. Focus on exchanging ideas, not on perfection. Perfection will come naturally over time. She continues, when you speak, your goal is to turn your thoughts into words. Reading and shadowing help you refine grammar and vocabulary. Everyone, even leaders and public figures, makes mistakes. They focus on conveying their message, and so should you. Does this make sense? Our teacher asks. Yes, thank you, the student replies. Moral: to reduce mistakes, engage in lots of reading and shadowing. Advice: dedicate 30 minutes daily to reading, listening, and speaking. Immersing yourself in various materials will enhance your comprehension and fluency.